The ACB hearings in their last day. And so far, the best summary I can give you of this is that Amy Coney Barrett should send the Democrat Senate Judiciary members a bill for the week-long constitutional law class that she has been giving them. She should ask for payment in full. She should ask for payment up front next time, because she's been taking them on a school bus all week. Nobody has been able to trip her up, corner her. In fact, they look pretty sad, pretty pathetic when they try. And it's largely been for the public, I think, a waste of time. It's all just pro forma nonsense from the Democrats about, oh, we love Roe v. Wade and Obamacare. I mean, they mostly turned this into an Obamacare commercial and reminded Americans that abortion for all 9 months of a pregnancy is the most important, most necessary thing that the Democrat Party stands for over all things. But there have been some notable moments, and one that will, I think, affect you and me already. It's through the change in the rules. Changing the rules, what we're allowed to say. But first, I just want to point out that I love the state of Hawaii. I think Hawaii is one of the most gorgeous places in the world. And Hawaiian people are great. I've been to Hawaii a few times, and I love it, and I've dreamed of moving there before. I just feel like it's just so beautiful. Anyway, there's a lot about Hawaii that I'm a big fan of. Even with all of that, it's hard for me to forgive the state of Hawaii for foisting Mazie Hirono upon us. It's stunning. And I don't usually say this in this way. It's stunning that this woman has been elected. And I mean, if she was elected the head of her local school board, I would be shocked. Who thought this was a good idea? She's a United States senator. And it was a struggle to even understand what she thought she was saying yesterday. I mean, she's reading from notes handed to her by her staff. And I love this, too. They ask Amy Coney Barrett, can you show us your notes at one point? Held up a blank piece of paper that said United States Senate on it. Hadn't written a thing. Had no notes whatsoever. Everything just going from memory. And always is completely fluid. I got to say, more impressive in this questioning period than either Kavanaugh or Gorsuch were. I'm just going to say it. More impressive. Even for, look, and those are very smart guys, but even better grasp of the law. Even more able to engage in recall and a little bit of back and forth intellectual jousting, which usually she, to continue this medieval metaphor, unhorsed her opponents rather abruptly. It was not hard for her. But with all that, we still had to hear from Mazie Hirono yesterday. And what became apparent, and this is true of a lot of Democrat lawmakers and Democrat lawyers too, is at a fundamental level, they don't really understand the purpose of the law. They think that the law, it's true of the Constitution as well. They think that these are just social constructs that you shift or change as needed. And that there's nothing below it. There's no important reason that we all agree exists for this thing. It's always this moving target. Okay. So that's one part of this. And there's another part of this, which is that I think that they're really just unable to understand a lot of the arguments that Amy Coney Barrett makes. So they misunderstand the purpose of the law, and they don't understand the people that know and try to explain to them. They're not really even able to process it. They don't understand these complexities. I mean, Mazie Hirono, here you go. Here's an example of where she says something out loud, and everyone who was watching this yesterday felt like it's like she had taken all of our brains out of our skulls, put them in a microwave for 5 minutes, and then handed them back to us. We're just amazed what's going on here. Play clip 1.
So when you say that you're going to make a decision based on the law, the real life stories that we've been talking about, you would consider those to be part of the law?
Yes. When we are talking about the law, it includes real stories from, like, what? Now, you might think, Buck, that's got to be the craziest thing, the crazy Maisie said yesterday, right? That's got to be the top of the list. But no, there was something that was even more outlandish that happened. Play clip 3.
To ensure the fitness of nominees for a lifetime appointment to the federal bench or to any of the other positions for any of the committees on which they appear, I ask each nominee these 2 questions, and I will ask them of you. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator Hirono.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
She's asking a female Supreme Court nominee if she's ever sexually assaulted someone. Yep. Now, I understand the Democrat response to this is she asks everyone. Okay, that doesn't mean it's not a stupid thing to do in the first place. And for those who say, why, Buck? Is there a problem with this? Okay. Should everybody who wants to be in public office be asked during a televised? I'm not saying that this shouldn't come up in background checks, and there's other stuff that goes into this, folks. But in a televised Senate hearing, should somebody be asked, if they've ever molested a child? Should everyone be asked that question? Have you ever beaten your wife or beaten your husband? I suppose. Should everyone be asked that question during a televised hearing? No. This is grandstanding from Crazy Maisie. That's what's going on. What the heck is this? But it gets worse. I keep trying to tell you, we're not even done yet. We haven't even gotten all the way through this, and yet there's more. This is where the language change comes in. Senator Mazie Hirono brings this up because earlier in the day, Dianne Feinstein asked a question of ACB, and ACB responded and used the term sexual preference. Now, I will tell you, and perhaps this is going to be a big problem for some people, I have used the term sexual preference in my life probably thousands of times. I mean, I don't even know, maybe even more. I mean, how many times have you used a phrase in common usage? Limo, a word in common usage. Those of you who like Black Hawk Down, you remember this, right? How many of you have used a phrase in common usage? And we were just told yesterday, and it was a fascinating real-time case study of how the left tries to win arguments by changing the words in arguments, the actual meaning and the definition and the usage of the words. I don't mean by just switching in other words. I mean, no, that's no longer a potato. That's a petunia. Well, okay, but I guess then, I thought we're talking about vegetables, right? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That's what they do. And here's an example of it. Maisie went to bring this back up. Clearly her staff had handed her this one. If you want to see proof that we are largely ruled by idiots in this country, not everybody, but largely ruled by idiots, watch some of the Senate testimony from yesterday and watch Mazie Hirono's questioning. I really mean this. You will never think of the United States Senate in quite the same way. This person is... Really? Yeah, really. But here's when we found out that sexual preference is now a slur, effectively, against the LGBTQ community. Not allowed. Play clip 2.
So even though you didn't give a direct answer, I think your response did speak volumes. Not once, but twice. You used the term sexual preference to describe those in the LGBTQ community. And let me make clear, sexual preference is an offensive and outdated term. It is used by anti-LGBTQ activists to suggest that sexual orientation is a choice. It is not. Sexual orientation is a key part of a person's identity. That sexual orientation is both a normal expression of human sexuality and immutable was a key part of the majority's opinion in Obergefell, which, by the way, Scalia did not agree with.
So we get it. Sexual orientation is used by anti-LGBTQ activists. No, it's actually the phrase that has been in common usage for as long as I've been alive. And no one meant it as any kind of a slight. It was just meant to be descriptive. You know, your sexual orientation. I'm sorry, your sexual preference. Now orientation, that's what we're supposed to say. But orientation means your positioning relative to other things. So if it's relative to other things, then that must mean it also is some degree of change and subjectivity. But I'll get into that in a second. But this is what they came at Amy Coney Barrett with yesterday. And as much as I don't think this is really going to do anything, change anything in this hearing, I think Amy Coney Barrett's going to get confirmed. And Democrats now are just resigned to the reality of, wow, we can't, you know, without a white male Christian to attack, Democrats are a little bit defanged. They don't have the same firepower. They need a white male Republican Christian, and then their tricks work. You make mother of 7, female, adopted 2 kids from Haiti, you know. Yeah, and you have to specify a mother of 7. You got to say female because it could be a male mother of 7. You don't know. And this is left-wing dogma now. You're saying, come on, no, that's real. That's real. That's what they want, at least. That's what we're supposed to do. So now it's no longer sexual preference. It has to be sexual orientation, which is interesting because I mean, I would tell my sexual preference is women. This is not hard to think about or say. It's very clear that I am sexually attracted to women. So why? And, you know, other people are some men are sexually attracted to men and so on and so forth. You know all this. Why is this offensive? Oh, well, it gets to, as Maisie was saying here, or she was reading off of her cue cards, the immutability of sexual, we'll use the term now, orientation. And notice that now they've changed this rule as of yesterday. I've never heard this before in my life, and I study wokeness, and I fight wokeness. This is a new one. Had never heard that before. Sexual preference. Never heard it. But I do remember being at a party a long time ago, and someone said he's a guy who prefers men or something like that for a guy who was same-sex attracted. And somebody else got a little bit snippy. But this is a long time ago, and I remember thinking, like, how could what's the... He didn't say anything disparaging. Why is that? But because the whole thing is, oh, you're born this way, and it's always that way, and there's no choice involved. That's why, and that's necessary for it to become, in the leftist approach to this, a protected characteristic like race, gender. So here's the problem, though, that they create with this. See, their illogic and their irrationality creates more inconsistencies, creates more problems. Now you can change your gender. We know this. You can change your gender, and it's not based in anything physical. So it's actually not people who have, I'm forgetting, I mean, we don't use the H word term for it anymore. There's another term for it I'm forgetting, but where you have some male parts and some female parts, usually vestigial of one and more of the other, but it's not that. It's not physically based. It's psychologically. It's how you feel inside that determines your gender. But if you can change your gender, how is it you can't change your sexual preference? Right? If you're a man who says that I'm really a woman, so I'm a trans woman now, and I believe they want you to just say woman too. You can't even say, and if you say someone's old name, that's dead naming, right? There's all these new rules that we have to live by. You're a trans man who's attracted to a woman, who says you're a woman. And once you make that transition, you are now attracted to men, whereas you had been attracted to women. That does happen. Doesn't always happen that way. So then that means that sexual orientation is at some level, has to be at some level of preference, because if it can change based on emotion and psychological desire, then it's not immutable. They tell us that gender is on a spectrum. Gender, I'm just working you through. This is the left-wing woke logic here. Gender is on a spectrum. It's fluid, all these things. but sexual preference is locked in stone? You're born with a certain sexual preference that it cannot be added to or shift? How does that make any sense? So you can have all male body parts, XY chromosomes, and think that you're a woman and society has to completely accept and protect and actually now celebrate and cherish that. Men can get periods too. These are phrases the left uses. It's true. But we're supposed to believe from the moment of birth, you are either same-sex attracted or heterosexual or bisexual or I don't know what else there. I know there are other things that would go into this. And you stay that way forever? Where's the evidence for this? Where's the science, libs? But it's not about that. You know what it's about? Changing the rules and making all of us snap to it, do what we're told. Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.